Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Autism Stories. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Coach. Autistic people are the true experts of the autistic experience, and Autism Stories is where we interview autistic people to learn from their diverse stories, experiences, and get their insights. If you would like to be notified about each week's episode of Autism Stories, we suggest you subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. Now, on to today's episode, where we're joined by Diana Khalipina, who joins us to discuss website accessibility. We hope you enjoy today's conversation. Diana, thanks so much for joining me here on Autism Stories.
Hello, Doug. Thank you very much for having me here. It's an honor for me to be here.
I'd love to start off by kind of discussing, where does your story in the autistic community begin?
Oh, so for me, it's like three paths joining in one, because first I learned about autism from my educational scientific perspective, because I'm biomedical engineer. And so we were studying biomechanical way of different diseases, including autism. So first for me, it was a scientific perspective, not personal. Then on the way, I started to work as web developer and accessibility expert. And so I learned from a digital perspective, what is the experience that people with autism, they have using the web, what are the best practices, and how to create really calm, reassuring, and really positive in all way digital environment for people with autism. But the third, the most important one, I would say, is my personal experience. It was not as close, but for me, it was a very close experience, because my best friend in Paris, she has a son with autism. So I went through ups and downs together with this family, and I saw how he was navigating the school, how they were going together through the sensory overload, through the different periods in his life. And this really showed me the importance, not just in the textbooks or from the courses, but practical experience of seeing what's important for people with autism. And for me, it stays as the guideline to create really without disabling people, like create design that really help all the people to get the information and the services in the best way without disabling them.
Now, you mentioned being a web accessibility expert. You help tech teams, e-health startups, and organizations build digital experiences that aren't just compliant, but genuinely inclusive. When you think about genuinely inclusive digital experiences, what are some of the most important values or principles that come to mind for you?
Well, I would say for sure that if we're talking about accessibility and truly inclusive design, we shouldn't think first about the standards, about the law, and about all this information. At least I can talk from my personal experience. When I first started to learn about web accessibility, I felt overwhelmed. It was too much information, too many standards. You don't know where to start. Even as engineer and as web developer, I struggled a lot. I couldn't understand what should I do, even though I had intention. But this intention, I didn't know how to direct it in a right way. So I would for sure say that first you need to start making accessibility as your habit, so that to do some things every day, some small things that will help you first to understand that accessibility, it's the part of your life, that it's something that I would like to use an example like about the climate change. First, it was something just for some people, for some group of people, ecologists. But now all of us, we're sorting the trash. We're thinking about the nature. So it became a part of our life naturally. It should be the same about accessibility. That's what I believe. Right now, it's not a part of education in schools, in universities, but to build a truly inclusive environment, we need to make it a part of our life. on everyday basis. So I would suggest to people who really want to make a truly inclusive design, first to understand that you cannot know everything. Even if you take course about web accessibility, there's a lot of information, there are a lot of disabilities. You shouldn't feel bad if you don't understand something, or that you cannot implement something fully. We all learn every day, including any web accessibility expert, including me. I learn every day about different disabilities, what's the best experience, what are the best tools. So take it slow and relax. Then I would say that we need to think about empathy. We need to remember to keep empathy at the heart of it. And when we do anything, we post something or we design something, we code something, it should be thinking about, okay, I step into the shoes of another person, how it will be for other people, so that we should keep a thought about other people in our heart. And another thing is that, very important thing, is that compliance is not equal to accessibility. Even WCG, I think in America you call it WCAG. I might be wrong about how it's pronounced because it's in different countries you pronounce it differently. It doesn't include all the criteria that help all people with disabilities. It's changing all the time. There is a new WCAG 3.0, the new standard that's coming most probably next year. So it will include more criteria for people with cognitive disabilities. So right now, the current one doesn't include all the people. So you need to understand that it's not perfect. It's not like a Bible containing everything. It's not like that. And you need to think more. It's good to be compliant, but you need also to think about extra steps that you can do for real users. And the next step for truly inclusive design, I would say to remember that everything is connected. When we create something, when we code something for web, usually it's like A, B, C. We code a structure, then we fill it, then we add some design. Everything is clear and understandable. With accessibility, it's a little bit different because even when you have some issue and you change color contrast, for example, okay, so you fix the issue, but it's not over because, for example, for the dark mode, this issue, you create another issue for the dark mode by fixing an issue for the light mode. So you need to remember that everything is connected, and you need to think about people. Oh, okay, how it's going to be for another person? Maybe you solve this issue for a person with motor disability, but you create some issue for people with cognitive disabilities. So this you should keep in mind. It's very complex, but it's beautiful and it's truly empathetic.
I think that's really helpful because everything is connected. And
Yes.
do you see that as kind of a big overwhelming aspect of web accessibility?
Yes, precisely. And it's very beautiful. And I'm very happy because I have experience of working as biomedical engineer, as web developer. I worked a little bit as a journalist, which now helped me to be accessibility advocate. So it's really all connected. So actually, I see that my knowledge about disabilities from biomechanical perspective helped me to understand better how disabilities work and how it affects digital experience. And it's really beautiful connection. Yes, it's complex, but that's really what we need. And I believe that in the basis, we all want everybody to understand in the best way the information and the services that we want to bring them, to include everybody. So in order to do this, we really need to think about web accessibility.
Now, I think for many organizations, they haven't even begun the journey on web accessibility. And I think it's helpful to see organizations that have been going on that journey for years. And I bring that up because you recently discussed on social media the digital accessibility journey at Lego, which started for them about a decade ago. What do you think are some of the most important takeaways or lessons we can take from Lego?
Well, Lego is quite unique, I would say, among other companies because they really affect us from very young age. I was writing about different companies, including IKEA, Spotify, Microsoft, but Lego, that's the company that we know about even before we start talking. Like, I have 3 kids, and they are playing with Lego, and the youngest one is still not talking. So, so it really affects us, and the way how they think about web accessibility, it really plays a big role. Like, not just about web accessibility, but accessibility in general. And what found the most interesting is that they take neurodiversity seriously. They work with web accessibility experts specialized in neurodiversity. For example, the Lego house in Denmark, it's certified as sensory inclusive, which is really great. Not so many companies they are thinking about it. They also have characters with which children they can play, representing people with hidden disabilities, including autism. This is also very important. So on different levels, they want to be web accessible, they want to be accessible, and they want to be the most important, they want to be accessible for people with hidden disabilities. And this part, even WCAG, like what I mentioned, it doesn't contain everything for people with cognitive disabilities. So for the big company affecting us and the way how we're playing, how we're learning, how we're growing, to think about neurodiversity, it's really important, and it's a very good direction that affects also small companies that look at Lego as something that they want to achieve.
Now, we were talking earlier about kind of the overwhelm of web accessibility. And that makes me think about organizations, or frankly, anyone that has a website that wants the digital experiences for their customers or visitors on their platform to be more accessible, but aren't, exactly sure where to start. What might you suggest? Where do you see as a starting point or consideration of where to begin?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. Because I think that, like I mentioned, it was a problem for me as well, where to start, even when you have good intentions. For the companies, I would say that most of the companies, they use like Slack or some other tools where they write messages and they plan things. I would really recommend to create a channel accessibility where you put any thoughts that you have about accessibility, how it's going, the development of the company, how you fix the issues, what are the news, to make some activities. I was trying to create several posts with different activities for the Slack for the company, so that you can just add them and try them once per month, so that it becomes the part of your everyday professional life. I think this could be a good start, because this is not something overwhelming with the rules, or we're talking about the laws or the fines. It's too much. And you need to start with something easy, something flexible, something in playful way. This would be the best, I believe. And that's what I do with the companies that I work for as a web accessibility expert. And the best was for me that actually, after creating side channels, so it's already 1 year, after 1 year, they started by themselves notice, oh, this is new design, like on another branch without me. So I didn't see this discussion, but they discuss, oh, the color contrast probably is not sufficient enough. So they start to notice it automatically. When you make it part of your everyday professional life, for people, they, whether they understand or no, but subconsciously they start to notice these things. They start to see accessibility patterns, what they should have. But in general, for not for professionals, well, not for the companies, but for individuals, I would say, as I mentioned, accessibility should be a habit. I believe that this is the key, and it should be habit in an easy way. Like, for example, you can subscribe to newsletters. Just make it a part of your everyday coffee, morning coffee. Like, you take a coffee during the breakfast, you just scroll your phone, you see what is new about accessibility, interesting posts or analyses of the company, something like this, something easy, readable, and nothing too much. So like this. And Then you can include, for example, a small checklist, accessibility checklist, just at the end of the day. Like, for example, you are a designer, check the color contrast, check whether you structurized your text in the best way, how easy it is to read for people. It's so important to think about sensory overload, like, for example, for people with autism, to think about the structure, to think about creating a calm experience, not overwhelming. So just include it in your small, just 10 points, 10, 10 points checklist that you can just go through at the end of the day. And I believe like this, it's much easier than going through the all criteria of WCAG. Also, it is important to talk to other people, write about accessibility, talk with your family. For example, me, I'm trying to talk to my children about accessibility. We are reading about Louis Braille, about the person who created the Braille for blind people, the alphabet. And we are learning the French Sign Language. It's very funny. And even for children who cannot talk, they can study this language because it's about the movements and it's funny. And they also understand better how people who cannot talk, they interact. So I believe it teaches a lot of empathy and it teaches about accessibility. I would also say that it's important to attend online, offline meetings. Right now, as web is progressing, it's very easy just to subscribe to be a part of some event. I'm talking about some presentation, some educational event, whether it's offline or online. It can help you to be a part of bigger community, to learn from them, and to also bring your perspective. So I believe these small steps, they can help you on the way.
Now, thinking about starting points, I'm wondering about a barrier to leaders of organizations even thinking about web accessibility. Is that they might believe that they never experience accessibility barriers themselves. How might you approach conversations with folks that have that mindset?
Oh, this happens almost every day. There are a lot of people, of course, who say that no, it's something that is not about us. We don't have people with disabilities. They just don't understand what it is. I really believe that every one of us want to include as many people as possible. Like, there is not a single person who would say, oh, I want less people to know about my business, less people to buy my services. It just doesn't exist. And they don't understand that we are talking not just about people with cognitive disabilities, motor disabilities, visual disabilities. We're talking about young parents. We are talking about old people, the person who break an arm. Any of us can be in such situation, or just the person outside under bright sunlight who cannot read your website. It's literally everybody. And for such people, there are different ways how we can approach this situation. And I was even writing posts like, we can talk about numbers, how much money they lose. I by myself, I don't like so much numbers. For me, it's too much, like, so much far from people and from reality. Like, it's a little bit like you're hiding behind numbers. That's how I feel. So I'm trying really to see and to listen to who I'm talking to. Who is this person? Is he a parent? Is he doing sports? What is his life? What is his everyday life? So that to find the connection between him and web accessibility, so that to build this understanding on his example. I think that this is the key, not to bravade with big numbers, with how it is important, but to make this his personal experience. And if he understands, then he will also put web accessibility for his business. That's the key.
You've lived, studied, and worked in Denmark, Germany, and France, along with increasing collaboration in Sweden and the Nordics. I'm wondering how experience living in all these different countries has impacted your mindset for global accessibility standards.
Oh, yes, I had a big experience living in different countries. I understand that in America, probably it sounds like they're more or less the same, but in reality, they're quite different. it's through different culture, different language, different way of doing things. And I also grew up in Russia. So this is another experience. Like there are many, many experiences combined. And I would say that Nordics, yes, it's more about trust, user autonomy. And when I first arrived in Denmark, I was amazed by how they build websites, how structurized, how everything is understandable, how beautiful it is at the same time. It was incredible. Their web design and web accessibility level up. I'm still amazed, and I'm trying to learn a lot from them. I also was in Germany. It's more about the structure and the standards, but I think they lack a little bit the perspective of real user, because it's very much like strict, and they have their own accessibility standards, by the way. But last 10 years, I live and work in France, and here we have RGAA standards, so they also have their own standard. And I would say that here it's completely different from all the previous experiences, because they are very much for public services, but they struggle with digital adaptation. It might be a shock, but here you still need to send paper letter to get different services, or even to finish your job. Like you really have to deal with the paper, sometimes even handwritten paper. So you need to really struggle with this in many situations. So web accessibility in such country, it's a new experience, and they have a problem about adaptation. They have a very good standard. Actually, RGAA is more strict and more about how we can implement web accessibility, while WCAG is more about recommendations. So what I noticed that the standard is more strict, but it's much harder actually to implement it in France. So, and the cultural way is also different. It's really hard to make people a little bit sacrifice their comfort in order to make the experience inclusive for everybody. They are very much for beauty. I think that you know about Paris, France, fashion, and it's the part of the culture. So I see that it's very difficult. This path is very difficult in France, but they are moving. At least they are moving. They are trying to integrate web accessibility, but it's going much harder than in Nordic countries.
And then lastly, how can our listeners learn about you beyond this conversation?
I believe that my words, they say a lot about me. The way how I was answering about to all other previous questions. But I can mention that I'm mother. I have 3 young kids, and this is overwhelming experience. And this helps me understand problems of people with disabilities, because I have to work at night with the dark mode. Sometimes there is no dark mode, and my eyes, they hurt a lot, or I need to use my devices with one hand, because with another hand I need to do something with my child. So it's overwhelming experience in many ways. But I also can mention that web accessibility helped me to accept myself in many ways. I think just like many people with autism or people with any kind of disabilities, they think, okay, something is wrong with me. I don't understand this website. It's the problem. It's me, my problem. I thought about this, and I thought like this many times. And I still have problem, even though I have master degree in biomedical engineering. It's still hard for me to read scientific papers. They're so monotonous, black and white, 2 column. It's really hard to get what's the main idea. And I always thought that it's me. I am problematic here. But web accessibility teach you to understand that nothing is wrong with you. There are different people with different needs. You should calm down. Everything can be done in a better way. The problem is not in you. You are beautiful in the way you are. And you need to accept yourself with your difficulties, with your struggles. But you are beautiful and you are unique. And that's what I love about web accessibility. And I believe that everybody deserves such experience, and everybody deserves to accept themselves and to see that if you struggle with some digital experience or physical experience, this is not you. The problem is not with you. I could also mention that is connected to web accessibility. I have hidden disability. I have a carotid paraganglioma. It's a tumor with which I lived for 15 years. And I couldn't talk about this. I believe that this is something that shouldn't be discussed. This is something wrong with me. And this is something like a hidden disability that I have, but it affects me. Like, for example, sometimes I have strong headaches and it's hard for me to read, to work. It affects my professional and personal life, but I really learned to accept it, and web accessibility helped me. So I understand how people with visual disabilities, they see the side, why the color contrast is so important. And through web accessibility, I learned to accept me, accept my disease, to talk about it in an open way, and to help other people to improve their digital experience.
Well, Diana, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks so much for making time to talk with me here on Autism Stories.
Thank you so much, Doug. I'm really honored to be here and to talk on such important subject.
Thanks so much to Diana for the conversation. To learn more about Diana, please check out the link in the podcast description for this episode. We always love hearing from you and would especially love to hear from you regarding Lego's approach to neurodiversity inspired design that struck Diana as a model for others. What companies or platforms do you think are doing accessibility well, and what makes them stand out? Did you know Autism Personal Coach provides support by autistics for autistics? We empower autistic adults and teens to be the best version of their authentic selves through our customized life coaching and community groups. We also support parents and partners of autistic people by providing insights and guidance to bridge communication gaps and nurture mutual understanding. So please visit autismpersonalcoach.com to begin your experience of judgment-free coaching rooted in empathy, expertise, and respect for autistic identity. Until next time, I'm Doug Bletcher of Autism Personal Coach. Talk to you then.